At around 1 p.m. on December 4, 1872, a vessel emerged on the horizon near the Azores, moving in a way that immediately unsettled experienced sailors. Her sails were set incorrectly. Her course wandered without logic, and no one responded to signals. When a boarding party finally climbed over the rail, the name carved into the stern confirmed what would become one of history's greatest maritime enigmas: Mary Celeste. She was not wrecked. She was not burning. She was not sinking. Her cargo remained. Food and water were untouched. Personal belongings sat where they had been left. But every living soul was gone. This is the verified story of what was discovered aboard the Mary Celeste, what the official inquiry actually examined, and what the strongest evidence-based explanations can and cannot account for. The facts alone are unsettling enough. There is no need for legends. And one overlooked detail on deck suggests the crew may have been making a decision until the very last moment. The ship that discovered her was the British brig Dei Gratia, commanded by Captain David Morehouse. Observing the vessel's strange behavior, Morehouse suspected trouble and dispatched a boarding crew. Once aboard, the conclusion was immediate and chilling. The Mary Celeste was completely deserted. She had departed New York Harbor on November 7, 1872, bound for Genoa, Italy. On board were Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and a crew typically listed as 8 men, though some official records list 7. Regardless of the exact number, it was a small group, and every one of them vanished. The cargo consisted of roughly 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol. When the ship was found, that cargo remained largely intact. Nothing appeared looted. Nothing suggested a violent struggle. So, what was wrong with the ship? Enough to raise alarm. Not enough to explain an empty deck. Mary Celeste was under partial sail. The rigging showed wear and damage. Several ropes hung loose. The compass housing had been disturbed and its glass cover broken. Multiple hatches were open, including the forehatch and the lazarette. In the hold, investigators found approximately 3.5 feet of water. Concerning, but not catastrophic for a vessel of her size. The logbook remained on board. Its final entry was dated November 25, 1872, placing the ship near Santa Maria Island in the Azores. This meant the vessel had continued sailing for days after that entry, with no one aboard to guide it. Then came the missing items that changed the entire interpretation. The lifeboat was gone, and so were essential navigational instruments and critical papers. This detail appears consistently in official records and modern summaries because it strongly implies intention, not sudden destruction. If the crew had been attacked, why remove navigation tools but leave supplies and valuables? If mutiny occurred, why abandon a seaworthy ship and valuable cargo? If pirates boarded, why take nothing of worth? This is the first trap of the mystery. The ship looks calm. The missing boat does not. So what were they escaping from? The formal process began when Dei Gratia brought the vessel to Gibraltar, where a vice-admiralty court held salvage hearings. Under maritime law, salvors could earn compensation based on risk and value recovered. Because the circumstances were so unusual, investigators explored fraud, violence, and conspiracy. None were proven. That leaves 3 questions that still drive every serious explanation. Why would an experienced captain abandon a ship that could still sail? Why were the lifeboat and navigational tools taken if the departure was controlled? And what caused 10 or 11 people to vanish without leaving a single confirmed trace? One of the most grounded explanations begins with a simple object left on deck: a sounding rod. Sounding rods were used to measure water in the hold. Its presence on deck suggests someone was checking water levels shortly before abandonment. Encyclopedia Britannica notes that a sounding rod was found, and that one of the ship's pumps had been disassembled, implying malfunction. Together, these details support a specific fear. Captain Briggs may have believed the ship was taking on dangerous amounts of water. Here is how that fear could escalate. A ship can be seaworthy and still feel unsafe. Rough seas can force water through openings, soaking cabins and making conditions appear dire. Mary Celeste's interior was reported as wet and disordered, not destroyed, but unsettling. Now at a pump failure. If water is rising and a pump will not work, panic becomes understandable. A misread sounding or faulty measurement could convince even a skilled captain that the ship was about to founder. If that belief took hold, the lifeboat becomes the emergency option. Navigation tools would be taken for a planned escape toward land. But this explanation creates a brutal paradox. If they abandoned ship to escape sinking, why did the ship not sink? Because fear can be wrong, pumps can be repaired, leaks can slow. Seas can calm. A ship that feels doomed can recover once panic leaves. There's another clue that points to fear rather than damage. The cargo itself. Mary Celeste carried alcohol. Records later noted that a small number of barrels were empty, a normal occurrence for such cargo. Leaking alcohol releases fumes. Fumes suggest fire and explosion. This leads to the most discussed natural explanation. Not an explosion, but the fear of one. The theory suggests alcohol vapors accumulated in the hold, and a sudden ignition caused a pressure wave blast. This type of event can be loud and terrifying without leaving burn damage. In 2006, chemist Andrea Sella at University College London recreated such a scenario for a television experiment, demonstrating that a dramatic fireball could occur without scorching surfaces. This experiment is frequently cited as evidence that a frightening but low trace blast was possible. If this happened, opening the hatches to vent fumes would be logical. Mary Celeste was found with hatches open, consistent with inspection or airing of the hold. The crew may have moved to the lifeboat temporarily, intending to return once danger passed. But the sea allows no margin for error. If the lifeboat was tethered and a rope failed, or weather shifted suddenly, the boat could drift away while the ship continued under sail. The ship survives, the people do not. This explanation fits key facts simultaneously. No violence, a sailing ship, a missing lifeboat, an orderly departure, a vanished crew. But it remains unproven, and one question refuses to fade. Why would Captain Briggs risk his wife and toddler in an open boat? That question changes everything. Because it makes recklessness unlikely, it points to only one type of decision. A belief that staying aboard guaranteed death, whether from sinking or explosion, or something worse. The logbook ends on November 25th. After that, the ocean keeps the story. That silence turned Mary Celeste into a canvas for myth. In 1884, Arthur Conan Doyle published a fictional account that altered details and shaped public imagination. Fact blurred into fiction, and the legend grew larger than the evidence. So here's what is known and what is not. It is true that Mary Celeste was found deserted near the Azores in December 1872 and brought to Gibraltar. It is true that the ship was disordered but seaworthy, with water in the hold and no signs of violence or fire. It is true that the lifeboat and navigation items were missing. It is true that the last log entry dates to November 25th. It is true that the official inquiry reached no conclusion. It is not proven that pirates attacked. It is not proven that mutiny occurred. It is not proven that a vapor explosion happened. And it is not proven that the crew planned to return and failed. Those answers vanished with the lifeboat. Mary Celeste herself did not remain a ghost. She continued sailing under new owners until 1885, when her final captain deliberately wrecked her near Haiti in an insurance fraud scheme. If stories like this stay with you long after they end, support the channel by liking and subscribing for more fact-checked deep dives into unsolved history.